Stored Republic via GCR. Update. The Quantum Financial System, QFS, is here and it's turning everything we knew upside down. Changemaker 17. So here is my latest theory for the week. They always told us there will be no double dipping of currencies. Meaning one is not going to RV before the other, so you can't use that money from exchange to go buy more currency. Iraq has their Independence Day October 3rd and admission to the WTO October 4th. They must reinstate their currency prior to the 4th, and in doing so they make the currency intentional. If what we heard is true about the U.S. Congress repealing the Iraq War Declaration last week, that means that was the final thing that needed to be done in the U.S. in order for U.S. banks to exchange the dinar. We have much hype about October 3rd to 4th with an EBS test and major Q deltas indicating everything from narrative shift to a Navy ship crashing and being bigger than we know. To me it seems we will have a scare event around the 4th. We have had when we do have EBS, lockdown, it could last 72 hours. Many prophets have prophesied that there will be a scare event then exchange after. We have the biblical message of turning the table over on the money changers appearing on the US debt clock, all while the Forex is zeroed out and has all currencies added. Bank personnel have confirmed now seeing over 200 currencies on their screen including dinar, bolivar, and dong. Monday, October 9th is Columbus Day and a bank holiday. We always heard the RV will be done on a 3-day weekend. To me it seems it could be scare event, EBS Wednesday the 4th. We go into lockdown for 72 hours and we get RV notifications going into the weekend. The stock market will be blown up Monday. Whiplash always said it would literally be blown up and blamed on a CME when no one is in it. No stock without source, merge it into Stellar. The Q delta that says private exchange last is dated Jan 22. The other delta mentioning currency said think currency, think fireworks. September 11th was Ethiopian New Year, 22 days later bring us to October 3rd. It really seems it is all converging for this week into the weekend. I restored Republic, Monday 2nd of October, the Pentagon's clandestine military tribunal within Guantanamo Bay. The debt clock keeps getting better, our Republic can be easily seen in the new categories. The new categories say USA instead of US. US is the corporate US government. USA is our Republic. The new USA Treasury Dollars 2025 has a map of our nation next to the header. Zoom in. Our Republic is outlined in gold. The US M2 money supply now is decreasing rapidly. This category has a pyramid and Federal Reserve dollars in the background, so we know it's the Illuminati and foreign elite. They're losing their money. However, the new category of US M2 dollar to USA dollar ratio now is 1776. Ha! Hysterical. 1776, our constitutional republic. Ken and Barbie vs. Goliath IRS. For over 5 years Barbie and Ken Cromar have been battling for our right of freedom from the privately owned U.S. Incorporated's Goliath IRS that has stolen our U.S. taxpayer dollars for their own use since 1913. Even after the Cromars won their case in a federal tax court that ruled they owed no monies to the IRS, a 27-man SWAT took away their fully paid-for home and threw away all their possessions including expensive camera equipment Ken used to make a living. They have now incarcerated Ken in the Utah Weber County Jail, where federal prosecutor Chris Angelos was to provide Ken with discovery as of September 19, 2023, which has not been done, leaving Angelos potential violation of various federal statutes, including but not limited to, Title 18 Seconds 241, Conspiracy to Deny Rights, Title 18 Seconds 242, Denial of Constitutional Rights under the color of law, plus misprision of a felony. There appeared to be a systematic and prejudicial effort to deny Cromar his right to due process in order to assure an outcome that would find him guilty of a fabricated crime he did not commit. Documented fraud in former Utah movie producer indictment leads to another DOJ criminal complaint/referral. The militarized privately owned IRS was using maritime law, where U.S. citizens have no standing, not constitutional law, to make an example of the Cromars. This could happen to anyone, and very like has to many in the past. It's time we stand behind the Cromars and fight for our freedoms. Ken's mailing address, he can only receive white postcards. Paul Kenneth Cromar, number 655950 Weber County Jail, P.O. Box 14000 Ogden, Utah 84412. El Maui Massacre, an urgent plea for help. The capital of the sovereign nation of Hawaii and Lahaina, Maui, has been destroyed. 4 key facts that will never change. 1. Hunter Biden sat on Burisma's board. 2. He was unqualified to do so. 3. Burisma pressured him to get DC to act on policy issues in Ukraine. 4. Joe Biden did just that. Q. The real news for Monday, October 2, 2023, Monday 2nd of October live, major arrests decode situation update October 2, 2023, major arrests coming, The Pulse with Dave, on 2s. 3rd of October Russia will conduct a nationwide nuclear weapons defense exercise. 9/11, Zionists, Rothschild central bankers, did it. 4,000 Israelis employed by companies housed in the World Trade Center stayed home from work on September 11. They were warned in advance of the impending attack on the World Trade Center. America is ground zero, Rodriguez. The Harvey Weinstein trial lead to who? Joe Biden, your faux president. Do you see the trend? So what is the conclusion? If you control the food, you control the people. That's ultimately the end goal. All around the world, unelected globalist bodies like the UN and WEF are waging war against farmers. In an attempt to seize control of the global food supply, under the banner of UN Agenda 2030 as detailed in a must-watch new documentary titled No Farmers, No Food, Will You Eat the Bugs? Joe Biden is not the real Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not the real president. USA Incorporated filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy 2020 case hash, 240,375 KKS. We are watching a white hat movie, the 2021 USA Incorporated Joe Biden shadow presidency. France, unconfirmed reports emerged that several senior and active French military commanders have delivered an ultimatum to Emmanuel Macron, restore order within 48 hours or else. Colombia, Bill Gates' mosquito factory in Colombia releases 30 million genetically modified mosquitoes a week into 11 countries. Red October refers to a term that has been used in different contexts throughout history. In the financial world, Red October has been used to describe a period of significant market declines or financial crises that occur during the month of October. Are Crimes Against Humanity in Canada, a dossier of evidence, the case of 60,000 murdered children and the man who surfaced their fate, Annette, Kevin, 9,798,399,033,556. Her name was Nicole Turcotte. She was one of the crowd of young students who had listened enthralled as I spoke of the children who had been killed just down the road. And, being young, Nicole was resolved to do something about it. The weekend after my lecture at her North Saanich High School, Nicole and 5 of her friends took some of my leaflets and quietly infiltrated the United Church's annual meeting in Victoria. They made a beeline for the youth delegates' table and began talking to them about the Indian residential children who had died in droves at the hands of their church. The next thing I knew, some big guy grabbed me by my arm and pulled me up, Nicole recalled. Then he dragged me to the door and pushed me out. I told him I had every right to be there, that it was a public place and I was protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedom. But he laughed and said, "We're the United Church of Canada. The Charter doesn't apply to us." 20 years later I still remember the tears in Nicole's eyes as she told me what had happened and fervently demanded to know, how do they get away with it? How indeed, Kevin Annette Eagle strong voice. An open letter to Canadians who wear orange shirts. This statement by Kevin Annette is endorsed by Squamish, Stolo, Chilcotin, Cree, Ojibwe, Huron and Mohawk Indigenous elders. Most of you aren't Indigenous and have likely never been sexually sterilized, tortured, or forced to eat maggots as a child, even though you've all paid for those atrocities with your tax money. So, we'll keep this basic. Reclaim their wealth and church buildings as reparations for their victims. Join the movement to build a decolonized Republic of Equal Nations, U Federal Reserve, Yorkshire Lass. A few weeks ago it was reported the Fed was laying off 300 workers. Last week the Federal Reserve note gets taken off the U.S. debt clock. A couple of weeks ago Wall Street suffered the worst losses since March this year and they're seeing sell-offs at an alarming rate never seen before. On the 21st September both Federal Reserve and Bank of England paused interest rates at 5.25 to 5.5%. In September Representative Tom Emmer introduces a bill to ban the Federal Reserve from creating a central bank digital currency, saying a CBDC is nothing more than a CCP-style surveillance tool that can be weaponized to oppress the American way of life. Fed President James Bullard resigned from the St. Louis Fed on the August 14. In an interview in 2007 Alan Greenspan, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve from 1987 to 2006, said that the Federal Reserve is an independent agency that is not a part of the U.S. government and is above the law, where the relationship between them doesn't matter. They can print as much money as they want and no one can stop them. Now they are digging 20 feet underground and it looks like a building site. Looks like they are digging the underground parking and tunnels. The Federal Reserve is currently draped in white plastic tarping sheets. Is this really the end of the Fed whilst all eyes have been on the bullshit government shutdown? Remember, about 5 months before his assassination, JFK signed EO 11110. This executive order would give back the American currency back to the American people by printing money backed by precious metals, by taking power from the criminal cartel, the Federal Reserve. The U.S. corporation is now bankrupt. Gold has destroyed the Fed, they have no money. The Federal Reserve has sunk like the Titanic before our very eyes. They have been doing everything in their power to distract us whilst the slavery system shatters into 1,000 pieces.